Good morning, fourth grade. Today we are going to do lesson 8.5 in math, and it's a problem solving method lesson. We are going to talk about comparison and using um, different strategies, such as draw a diagram to compare the fractions. Our first one is about the Grand Canyon. And it says the deepest part of the Grand Canyon is about 1 1/6 miles deep. The deepest part of the ocean is located in Marina Trench in the Pacific Ocean. Now, the deepest part of the ocean is almost 6 times as deep as the deepest part of the Grand Canyon. About how deep is the deepest part of the ocean? Well, when we read the problem, it says, what do I need to find? Well, I need to find how deep is the deepest part of the ocean. I'm sorry, I've written Grand Canyon there and I meant ocean. But we will need to use the deepest part of the Grand Canyon. Now, what information do I need to use? Well, the deepest part of the Grand Canyon is about 1 1/6 miles deep. And the deepest part of the ocean is 6 times as deep. How will I use the information? I can draw a diagram to compare the deepest links. So they drew a bar model, and it says compare the depth of the deepest part of the Grand Canyon, that's 1 1/6 miles, to the deepest part of the ocean, and that is 6 times, or 6 of 1 1/6. So we have to write an equation to solve. M is the deepest part of the ocean. M equals 1 1/6 times 6. Because remember, 1 1/6 was how deep the Grand Canyon is, but the ocean is 6 times that. So then we have to times it by 6. So we have to make 1 1/6 a fraction, and we do that by timesing 6 times 1 and get 6 and add 1, so it becomes 7/6 times 6. We times 7 times 6 and get 42/6. Now we need to turn it back into a mixed number. 6 goes into 7, or into 42, 7 exactly. So the deepest part of the ocean is 7 miles deep. Now, on our next problem, it says mountains are often measured by the distance they rise above sea level. Mount Washington rises more than 1 1/10 miles above sea level. Mount Everest rises about 5 times as high. About how many miles above sea level does Mount Everest rise? What do I need to find? How many miles above sea level Mount Everest is. What information do I need to use? Well, I need to know that Mount Washington is 1 1/10 mile above sea level, and that Mount Everest is 5 times that of Mount Washington. How will I use this information? First, going to draw a diagram. 1 1/10 is Mount Washington. 5 of those is Mount Everest. So I have to make an equation that says 5 times 1 1/10. I have to turn 1 1/10 into a fraction. 10 times 1 is 10, plus 1 makes 11/10. Then I multiply that times 5. 5 times 11 is 55. 10 goes into 55 5 times. with 5 left over. I put that 5 over my denominator of 10 and I get 5 and 5/10 or 5 1/2 miles. So Mount Everest rises about 5 5/10 miles above sea level. Now, the next question is, how did drawing a diagram help you solve the problem? Well, when we drew a diagram, it helps me see that Mount Everest is 5 times higher above sea level than Mount Washington. So it helps us to see it, that it's 5 times more. Now, I want to work through your share and show problems. We'll do those together. Number 1 says Komodo dragons are the heaviest lizards on Earth. A baby Komodo dragon is 1 1/4 feet long when it hatches. Its mother is 6 times as long. How long is the mother? Draw a bar model to show the problem. Well, here's the baby, 1 1/4 feet, and we'll mark that with a B for baby. And here's the mother. Remember, she's 6 times that of the baby. So we'll write an M for mother. Then we have to write an equation. The baby was 1 1/4 feet times 6. After we write that, we have to turn 1 1/4 into a fraction without a whole number. 4 times 1 is 4, plus 1 is 5. So that becomes 5/4 times 6. 5 times 6 is 30 over 4. And then we have to turn it into a number with a mixed number with a whole number and a fraction. 4 goes into 30 7 times with 2 left over. We put the 2 over the 4, and that reduces to 7 1/2. So how long is the mother? 7 1/2 feet long. Number 2 says, what if a male Komodo dragon is 7 times as long as the baby Komodo dragon? How long is the male? Well, you could draw another diagram like we did up here and then create your equation. 7 times 1 1/4. Turn your 1 1/4 into 5/4 and times it times 7. 7 times 5 is 35 over 4. Now 4 goes into 35 8 times, and that's 32. And then we have 3 left over. We put the 3 over 4, so we get 8 3/4 feet. Our next problem says the smallest hummingbird is the bee hummingbird. It has a mass of about 1 1/2 grams. A rufous hummingbird's mass is 3 times the mass of a bee hummingbird. What is the mass of a rufous hummingbird? Well, we have to take 3 times 1 1/2. So we have to turn 1 1/2 into a fraction. 2 times 1 is 2, plus 1 is 3, so that becomes 3/2. We multiply our 3/2 times 3. 3 times 3 is 9, so we get 9/2. We turn that back into a mixed number, and that becomes 4 1/2. 2 goes into 9, 4 times, with 1 left over. We put the 1 over the 2, and we get 4 1/2 grams. Our last problem says Sloan needs 3/4 hour to drive to her grandmother's house. It takes her 5 times as long to drive to her cousin's house. How long does it take to drive to her cousin's house? We have to multiply 3/4 of an hour times 5. 3 times 5 is 15 over 4. Now we need to turn that into a mixed number. 4 goes into 15 3 times. 3 times 4 is 12. 12 minus 15 leaves us 3 left. 3 over the 4 gives us 3 3/4 of an hour. I will let you do your on your own, but I want to give you a couple hints. Number 5 says, what is the difference between the tallest flower and the shortest flower? Remember, difference means subtract. Now, the next one says, Peyton says her average sunflower is 7 times the height of her average tulips. Whenever it says times, we know we're going to multiply. Difference, we know we're going to subtract. Okay, good luck and finish on your own and do your 8.5 in your PB book, and I will email the answers to you later.